can you share your earliest memory and what life was like when you were young?
My earliest memory would probably be when my dad had TB. He used to come and visit periodically, and my mom would make sure that she had special dishes, special blankets for him because he had TB. She wanted to make sure none of us would get TB. Sometimes my dad would be sitting up on the bed looking out the window. And one time my brother Charlie used to go after rabbits. One time the rabbit wasn't dead, so Charlie brought this rabbit home. I remember my dad looking out the window and he said, "Look at Sarah, look at our son, our hunter." And he was so happy. So it was a happy time. But that was my earliest memory of my dad. My siblings in order: Louis, Jimmy, Albert, Martin, Joe, Charlie, and Oliver. And the girls: Belina, my sister Katie, Nancy, myself, and Virginia.
And Ida, you forgot Ida. She was 6 years old when she passed away.
A little place called Normando. It doesn't exist now in La Flavish. We were in a nice house, nice.
But it is out in the country where it's raised.
Well, our house was like, it was pretty well open. Far end of the house was beds that we would all share. And this end would be the kitchen area, with the stove and our cupboards and our tables. And in days, we were all told to behave. When my dad came for a visit, they didn't have carriages and stuff like that for babies. So my mother would put a nail on one wall and a nail on one wall and made the bed in the center. So I would string the baby because I was told to every one of us need to behave because my dad was home. He was in hospital. He was dying of TB. They did not know anything about TB in them days.
I think he was a trapper. Mom said he was a trapper, and that's why he'd get sick again and go back to the hospital because he'd get bored staying home, go trapping and get sick again.
She was a midwife also. She was the one that went out and delivered babies and worked after sick people.
In Imperial Mills there, she delivered just about all those babies that were born there.
I used to do a lot of slingshot hunting when I was a kid. My first kill was a little chickadee. Granny baked it in the oven, overdone it, like she baked the cake and sprinkled it all over the cake. And then everybody had to have a piece of it. He said, "Joe, animals are not going to be afraid of you, you're going to be a good hunter." She baked that little bird like powder and she just put it over the cake.
Yeah.
That's one of the earliest memories. Mom told me one time they were going down, I don't know where they were going, but I was born along the road wherever they were going. A big thunderstorm. They set up tents and that's where I was born.
My mother said that was the biggest storm she ever saw in her life.
The biggest storm ever, that's when I was born. Granny must have delivered me.
My earliest memory would be, I was in the hospital when I was real young. I don't know how long I was in there. I think I was in there for quite a while. Because when I came out, Uncle Martin and I were walking up a little hill to go to school my first day. He says, when the teacher asks you how old you are, tell him you're 9. So I was 9 years old when I started school because I was in the hospital with pleurisy of the lungs, and then I got all the diseases that kids get, and chickenpox almost did me in. They called my mother, said I was dying, and she came over and she said a prayer, and she asked the Lord, if you let my daughter live, I'll take her to Lake St. Anne every year. So here I am, I'm still here. And after that, I just went to school, and I loved fishing when I was a kid, skating, baseball, swimming, tomboy, I guess. I sawed wood, chopped wood, and hauled it in. My brothers must have been happy. They were never around. I feel like I was the only child because I was the youngest girl and nobody was around. I had 3 brothers, raised with 3 brothers, but they were always gone. And I used to wish I had a sister a year older or a year younger than myself.
Can you describe what your community looked like back then?
Community, it was all Aboriginal, all Métis.
Yeah.
And all we spoke was Cree. My mom spoke nothing but Cree, no English. And I was 7 years old. starting school. I went to school. My first day in school, the teacher asked me what my name was, and I didn't know what she was talking about. And he had to answer everything. When I was born, he said, "What's your name?" And he had to answer everything for me because I didn't know English at all. Not a word. I was 7 years old.
I liked school, but I didn't like it when they started going to correspondence, because you can do that within an hour. Then you just sit there till school's over. And it get boring.
Yeah.
And I like school. I would sit there for as long as I could because when we got home, we had chores to do. Oh my goodness.
And our school was all wood heat, like a wood stove. And we all had to take turns to go early in the morning, start a fire.
Anne, can you share the story of how you first met your husband?
There was a sawmill. There's an Imperial Mill. He came to work and became friends with Albert, my brother Albert. So that's how I got to meet him. So the rest is history. I was a young bride. I didn't finish school. In the school we were at, I think they only taught up to grade 9. And after that, if you want to continue to school, you have to go back to vision. The majority of us girls decided to look for a husband and create our own families because there was so much work to do. I was 15 when I married, and I was 16 when my firstborn was born. 5 kids before I was 30 for sure.
Education was nothing at that time.
It wasn't important.
Yeah.
Joe, what was your first experience in the working world like?
I was 15 years old, and they were hiring at the mill there. And I lied about my age. I said I was 16. I started my job at 16. My mom was so proud of me. I started working. I passed the grade 9. I didn't even go to school. I started working. I was 15. They didn't even check her. I just said I was 16 and, we'll get to work. I worked there for 2 years. Then I came up north to Fort McMurray.
Okay.
And then I did some odd jobs here in Fort Mac, and that's when I moved there. And in 1967, I started working for GCOS at Suncor now. So I worked here 11 years, then I transferred over to Syncrude, and I worked there about another 20 years. I worked about 40 years with oil plants. I started off with conveyors, so I was putting conveyor. Then I worked up and became a foreman. Then I went to Syncrude, and I ran the big drag lines they have. I ran that for about 14 years and filled in as a foreman now and then. And then I retired, but I went back after again because there was so much work. I pushed a few jobs.
Virginia, what was your schooling experience like?
I only went to school. I quit when I was in grade 7. Like I said, I was bored with the correspondence lessons. I did a lot of babysitting. I went to Upper Fraser, BC to babysit for Uncle Joe. His wife was going to go in the hospital, have another child. They had one child. I went over there, and that's where I met my husband in Upper Fraser, BC. And I was maybe 25 or something, and he came to McMurray, and I was in Edmonton at my mother's taking a hairdressing course. And then when he found a job over here, came over here, couldn't continue. There was no hairdressing up here. First place he went to work was a sawmill, then he went to GCOS, Syncrude, and Suncor. He was a millwright planner, and both of my kids were born here in McMurray. Oh geez, we lived a lot of places. Yeah, Uncle always wanted to move, and finally I told him, "Why are we always moving all the time? I'm not moving no more." Got tired of packing stuff and moving.